I just stuffed my face. Hi,
Hi,
Justin.
Jenna.
How's it going?
Good, good.
Good.
How are you?
Hey. I've had better days, but I'm doing good now. Today's a hustle, but
Hey, you just
I'm
you just
chill.
wrapping up the show, huh? Just
Yeah, I
well, that was your second show for the day.
that was my second show for today. I did the after party show with the Ben podcast, friend of the show. Hello, Ben. I just finished up doing what do you call it? A thing. I did a thing. I did a thing with secular sexuality and a brief little, Q&A, and now I'm here.
Woo!
Better way to end my day with my bestie.
At the main event.
Main event. So, um, I'm kind of just throwing this at you because we didn't really have a title for today or a guess, but I did mention that I wanted to go ahead and dial back to our what is it? A conversation we had a month ago about poor people because
Poor
that
people.
all went like towards, investment stuff, and that's originally not the conversation that you wanted to have.
Po folk.
Po folk be like, I need my money. So yeah, I'm sorry.
And we're and the situation down in Texas is highlighting um
Oh god, yeah.
major inequalities. Um,
Mhm.
it's bad. It's already bad when things are going good, but these natural disasters and major events just significantly highlight the inequalities when you can't rely on social safety nets to save you from the shortcomings and failings of our economic system. When those crumble, then it's real bad.
Yeah. And I um since last night there was this kind of post from like one of the mayors in Texas, or not a mayor anymore, but he, resigned or whatever after he posted whatever bullshit. Pretty much explicitly saying, if you can't take care of yourself, don't beg for handouts, yada yada yada. It's your fault that you can't manage to take care of your family and all this other BS. And, thinking on that kind of rhetoric and mindset. It's not anything we haven't heard before among other issues and stuff. Like that's pretty consistent. But um I struggle with, you know, given the state of things in Texas with with what they're struggling with in the weather and how their whole, electrical um power and everything is set up. Like why? Why what was the point of all that? Especially as a person that used to be a public representation of a city. Why say such a thing when I don't know, maybe it's just me because I just don't have that mindset, but what is the point of saying such words or questioning people because they can't get by or are struggling or dying or near dying? What's the point of saying all that?
I mean, the point is that him and many other people believe it, right? That's their position, that's their belief, is that you should be prepared for natural disasters. You should be prepared for catastrophic failures. You should be prepared to not rely on the state for support.
Hmm.
And many people believe this, and there's no interest in public welfare and in helping your neighbor. There's a lot of people who basically live their life as if they can only rely on themselves and they should only rely on themselves.
But if you're already struggling with very little to begin with, what is there to really rely on, or what can you possibly do to help yourself?
Well, I mean that's the whole bootstrap argument, right?
Mhm.
If you have little, just work harder. I've seen a lot of replies in social media comment sections and discussions about people that aren't making enough or about minimum wage, or there's people that justify not raising the minimum wage by saying I worked 3 jobs and worked 80 hours a week, so other people should be able to do that too. Or if you want to make more money, work more hours. And
Mm,
it's um and to me that's kind of a wild statement, in that they think that should be normal, of working 80, 90, 100 hours a week just to be able to afford things that the people that there's a small small minority can do, or not small, but the average or slightly above average earners can do on a 40-hour week, as if they are admitting that their time with on their own, or their hobbies, their interests, their family, their friends are inherently less important for some reason or another. um yeah, but the idea that if you want to just have the bare necessities, the basic access to the most basic rights, that all you have to do is work every hour, every minute of your life,
mm,
and you should be happy with that, is pretty common.
mm. But you don't even have even the most wealthiest people working like that, and yet they make X amount of money. And
I mean,
so,
I think they do.
okay.
The wealthiest people, um, when you're when you're the executive, when you're the CEO level, when you're an entrepreneur, when you're self-employed, that type of stuff, people work pretty much around the clock. Um, and then
Okay.
there's people that don't, that pretty much have no control over their own schedules, their own day to day. But that's also by kind of by choice. I mean, and we're talking about people that make millions and tens of millions of dollars a year, not like, and if they lost their job, they would be perfectly fine. And their family and their family's family and their families for generations don't have to worry about money,
Mhm.
ever.
Mhm.
So I mean, there's a difference. They do work a lot, and I think that's a misconception, is that they work 40 hours a week, or don't have a hard job, or don't work hard. And they do.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, yeah, obviously I had that general misconception. I think I do recognize maybe some of the really top wealthiest or high earners do work hard and aggressively, but on the other side, I did for a moment. You taught me differently, so thank you. That the most wealthy of us, even the most well known of the wealthiest of us, don't work as hard or do very little. They just have people under them making their money for them. So I always hung on to that idea because that was just my basic understanding. But apart from all that, because there are issues, of course, with generational wealth, and there are major gaps when it comes to um, there are major gaps when it comes to certain demographics and certain communities that are underdeveloped or are overwhelmed with like whatever that just does not bode well with continuing to earn money and then some to keep families afloat and everything. But I want to drive away from all that business, economic, investment side and more focus on the more personal side because I know we've talked a lot as far as like how we've grown up differently. I grew up fairly, I won't say well off, but comfortably. My family was financially stable. I am presently still financially fairly stable too. And I own a home with my sister and I do well for myself. And I've never truly faced or struggled with going hungry or being in major debt where I would lose my home or be on the street or live out of my car and things like that. And I'm not saying you have, but we definitely have had some differences in background. So I kind of wanted to touch more on your experience and what you have learned based on, the struggles of the very poor, I guess you could say?
Um, I don't know what kind of specifics to get into.
Mhm.
What I will say is that being poor or impoverished, it's easy to lose sight or never be aware of the economic and financial opportunities that are available to you. Um, you don't when people say pull yourself up by your bootstraps or just work extra jobs or learn these skill sets or take advantage of these opportunities. For the most part, you're you get bogged down in the daily struggle of concerned about food, concerned about rent, concerned about your heating and electric and your very basic um, aspects of living that you never look. It's hard to look past that and see these other opportunities or even be made aware of them. Hey, Malty.
Yeah,
Hey,
Melty.
how's it
Thanks
going?
for joining us. Good.
Yeah,
Talking about poor people.
Yeah,
I'm feeling it.
Good.
feeling it.
Feeling it.
Um,
Go ahead.
so it's easy to get. I mean, you get caught up in this like rat race of just living day to day that you don't know that there's even a way to get off the wheel. Like it's never presented to you. Um, and you get in this mindset where you're not vying for the resources that are available globally or even nationally, but you only have access to the resources within your community. So the only things that you even have an option to obtain are the jobs that are around you, or when people get into stealing stuff from their neighbors, from the local stores,
Yeah.
or when you get into there's turf wars and gang wars and gambling and just always trying to like get over on the somebody else in your neighborhood
Mm.
as if you're gaining the upper hand in the bigger picture somehow. um and I think I mentioned it last week or whoever it was. I mean, look, the biggest gangs, the biggest the a crew or club or whatever you're involved in locally, even nationally, is nothing financially and with power in terms of compared to our our federal politicians and our corporate CEOs and executives. So you're playing like a whole different game, and you're living in a whole different world, and you don't even know because the information has never been presented to you in such a way that makes you feel part of it, but you don't even know what game everybody else is playing, um, that's not in the same situation you're in. You
And
know,
then oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
no, I was gonna say when I was younger, it was very easy to be convinced that, for instance, that poor people are you vote Democrat because the Democrats are trying to take care of you
Mm.
and they're trying to enact social programs, and the Republicans are only everybody that lives in the suburbs, everybody that has a good job, everybody that has a car or an education are all just rich Republicans that don't care about anybody in the hood. And
Hmm.
it feels more like class, like from my perspective being white, grew up in the city, it felt like more of a class issue than being
A
a
race
race
issue.
a race issue that turned into or also presents itself as a class issue,
Mm.
or both ways.
Mhm.
Um, just because you feel like those opportunities are withheld from people in your community.
Wow. And you know, And before I had to cut you off, I was going to mention because you had stated that you as a person that doesn't have much, it's hard to know what game the upper middle class, really rich are playing. I was going to say that, and you had said this to me before, you don't have the time to think about that stuff because
Yeah.
you're working like almost 24/7, struggling, trying to take care of family and yourself, and trying to get to work if you lack transportation or what have you. You don't necessarily have the time to think about all that stuff or educate yourself on how to be financially stable or how to save or how you can educate yourself or even possibly get into higher education or any of that, because you already have all these other compounding worries of your daily life. I mean, how do you have time to think about all that other major stuff that could possibly draw you out of that struggle? And then for me, I thankfully from my parents instilled both my sister and I, the positive aspects of saving and owning your own and continuing school
Mm.
and how you can go about getting higher education, how you can go about earning money and saving your money and getting to where me and my sister are now. We had that time because I had that comfortable placement in life to where my family was financially stable and we were okay versus, always having the constant thinking struggle that, people like yourself or anyone else has faced. So that was interesting to me because you had directed me to that knowledge, and I have never even thought of that before.
Yeah, I mean it's very related to what people refer to as this glass ceiling for women and minorities, right? It's very similar in that you feel like you inherently feel like there's a limit on what you can do, what you can accomplish, how high you can go, and you don't know what that limit is, but you're only aware of what's available by the people that are around you.
Mm,
The people that are not around you, it feels unattainable.
mm,
Or if you
Mm.
don't see people from your neighborhood, your community, your background, your whatever it may be, achieving more things than what you're currently seeing, you're not gonna be convinced that it's even possible. Now, of course, there's like rare outliers that will go for it, but when we're talking about making meaningful changes for a whole community, it's not just one person. It takes uplifting a lot of people to make a big difference. Um, but yeah, that was probably the biggest thing for me. Growing up where I grew up, going to school where I went to school, and eventually joining the military, going back to school, and now working in skilled trades. So still doing blue collar work, but seeing a lot more of the world, seeing a lot more of what's available, seeing what is out there and how people got there and how you can potentially navigate those paths and do it in a way that's not in some unattainable um uh
Oh,
thing where only people that had everything handed to them on a silver spoon were the options, because it feels like it's easy to convince yourself and believe that you could only ever be rich if you were born rich. You could only ever be successful if you come from a successful family. You can only ever be, educated if you come from a family that, is highly educated or values education and has the means to do so. It's
mhm,
easy to get into that rut, and there's not a lot of people or a lot of resources out there showing you otherwise.
mhm. But you're saying that now that you can see that there are paths out there.
Yeah, so it when I was and most of this happened when I was still living in the city, until I was about 18 and I moved out. Um but when I was around that age, I met very, very wealthy people
Okay.
that, when you meet some people that they grew up poor, or they were born poor, and they've turned themselves into millionaires or billionaires, and then you can kind of see the path and how they've done it, and what steps we're taking, and what they had to go through, and what they overcame, and what they were able to do with the resources that they had. It does, and then you meet these people personally, it does change your perspective on things.
Mm-hmm.
And then also eventually branching out and meeting people that are just regular average people that have, regular average, what I would currently consider like an average regular job now. But the big difference is they don't squander their opportunities. They don't practice or self-destructive behaviors. They don't blow money on things or waste a lot of time on things that are frivolous. They do act a little smarter um, with their assets, and do maybe invest, or buy a house instead of renting, or just not party all the time. Just a lot of small little things that, when you don't know that you can own a house or save money for your children and stuff like that, you don't even try, because you don't think it's even possible.
Mm-hmm.
But meeting these people and learning these things, and kind of getting out there and seeing it, it does change your perspective in a way that, one, you can do it too over time, but two, it makes it even more frustrating that you never knew about it, that just for some reason it just didn't seem like an option when it's so simple to most people.
Hmm. Wow. Uh,
So I went. What am I? 10, 15 years ahead of you. I'm dating myself. Maybe okay, 20. Fine.
I have no idea.
But man, when I was going through the 20s, 30s, getting through that professional, working as manager, 60-hour, 50-hour work weeks. Um, I was just at that point in time, I was starting to see the dissolving of the middle class somewhat.
hmm.
And I think it hasn't gotten better since moving forward from that time, from the 90s and from the early 2000s.
Hmm.
Yeah.
There's things that it's like, if you got Bitcoin right when they came out, if you invested in Tesla at the very beginning, or in my case, if it was at Microsoft, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we're talking about a small fraction of people that just happen to jump on the right train at the right time.
Right.
True. Yeah.
That's not like a big game changer for a whole community or a whole class of people.
No, you have to have that extra to begin with to be able to do stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And for me personally, right now, I'm in a I don't know, because most of my family is still poor and self-destructive. They smoke, they drink, they party, they rent. Um, they they don't try to get a better job. They don't try to learn any new skills. They don't go to school. Where people think that anything above minimum wage is a good job. Anything that's making enough to pay the rent is a high standard of living. In my neighborhood, graduating high school was a major accomplishment. We had a 25% graduation rate
Hmm.
from freshman through to graduating as a senior.
Hmm.
Graduation rate.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I mean, my freshman class had about 800 students, and we had 80, 82 people or something in my graduation class. And a lot of them dropped out, a lot of them moved.
Okay.
But yeah.
Hmm.
Um, but so it's like, and these things, when you're talking about like the ceiling that you play people, you're placed on in your community, when graduating high school is peak accomplishment. Like how far do you expect a community to go?
Not far.
So, but now I work in skilled trades, so and even now most of the people I work with make more than me because they've been doing it longer. But most of the work I do is on union controlled sites where people are making middle class or above wages.
Mm-hmm.
Even the laborers are making probably 50 to 60 grand a year. Then you get up into skilled trades, plumbers, electricians, roofers, masonry. I mean, you name it, any trade, HVAC,
Sure.
flooring, painting, everything, right? And these guys are making 60, 70, 80 grand a year.
And these
Um,
are guys without no type of upper or excuse me, higher education degrees or anything. It's just simply
well,
going through.
some of them do, right? I mean,
Okay.
we're not talking about, there's nothing defining across the board, but you
Hmm.
don't necessarily require that to get into the trades. There's a lot of
Yeah.
people that started over in skilled trades because it took them a long time to realize that you could have a lucrative career without going to school for 4, 6, 8, 10 years, um, or whatever it may be.
Hmm.
Oh
But
yeah.
they don't necessarily require an advanced education to be an electrician or be a plumber or be a mason. Now
Yeah.
you have to be good at your job and do it well,
Mm-hmm.
especially in construction. But you learn that through on the job training, going from apprentice to journeyman to master, and logging a lot of hours and working with a good crew.
Hmm.
But that environment, that type of work, that type of training, that type of pay for that type of a low entry barrier to entry is what is evaporating across the board. Um, and it's something like construction is different in that you can't import a building, you can't import a road.
Well, you know what you can import though is these LLCs that are running crews that are putting these buildings up. Yeah, and
Well,
they're coming from different states
well,
to the
here,
places where it's hot.
yeah, but a lot of places will require any trade, if there is a union for that trade, that the people working on this site will be unionized, and the union set this up to stop stuff like that from happening.
Hmm.
And specifically in Detroit, a lot of these big contracts, if you're the general contractor, a lot of your money is going towards paying the city to train skilled workers from within the city, and or your company has to be based in the city. So
Oh.
we have several large mechanical contractors that moved their headquarters into the city because that's the only way to get work in the casinos, the train stations, the schools, these big new headquarters that are popping up.
Hmm.
And it's in the city of Detroit did this intentionally after when they emerged from bankruptcy to increase the job training opportunities that are available.
Hmm.
So, God,
Yeah, I was
there's
just
a lot.
reading from the local public sponsored newspaper. It's so they've combined with the PBS broadcasting, and they were just writing a column about my local shopping center and the amount of violence that is in it, and how if it there's a push right now for all grocery stores in the city and the county to give a $4 or $5 wage increase to all their workers because of COVID. Um, and So, in response to that, some of the large companies like Kroger have actually shut down the lower performing stores. They say that they can't keep them open because their profit margins are not large enough.
Fantastic.
So yeah, and that
there's a difference. I mean, this is kind of a little sidestep, but there's a company like Kroger will have to run at anywhere between like 11 on the low end and 20 to 30% profit margin, or else it's not worth their time and effort to operate in that environment. A smaller
publicly traded company, right? It has to make profit for its shareholders.
Right. So a smaller shop don't have the same profit margin requirement. So if they were making 4 to 6% profit, they would get by just fine.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in all big businesses, and that's why, because your laborers, the people that are at that store making money, has to pay dozens of people at the chain of command, dozens of other people that are not producing value, but they have to get paid because they work in some other capacity. And on top of all of that, then they have to pay the shareholders. The small mom and pop shop or a smaller chain store will have an opportunity to open in these environments because they can operate at a lower profit margin.
Well, I hope so. I mean, that's what it seemed to happen. Was we had smaller. When I got into retail grocery, there was smaller locally owned businesses, which then grew to a number of 10 to 20 stores before they were bought up by a national chain. And that's what happened in my last 4 years. Is I went from a locally owned company to being owned by QFC, which was then bought by Fred Meyer, which was then bought by Kroger.
Yeah,
and yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and it's kind of a misconception that you can be as a small business owner, you're gonna be wealthy. You're a business owner. You're a CEO or a president, so you're gonna have a nice car and a big house and vacations and stuff like that. But I'm familiar with the our local small business trade associations, which have dozens and dozens of small businesses, and these, if you do it, if you pay your employees and you work hard and you work a lot, you can get by and have a decent house and maybe have some extra things with your profits. But if these businesses go out of business because they expect to be balling, or they blow all the money before paying down their loans. Now it's not all of them, of course, but I'm just saying that a problem that I've seen personally with small businesses popping up and then shuttering is that the owners think that since they are the owner, they can pay themselves first and go live this extravagant life and try to keep up with what they consider the CEO or the business owner lifestyle.
So it makes sense to me that if you are paying your employees well enough, at least, yeah, if you're paying your employees well enough, then that would allow them to not only sufficiently live well and be financially stable at the very least, but they can also how do you say it? They can also have like a stake in the company itself, have a share. be shareholders in that said company, so it can just continue to be there and potentially grow over time.
Well, if you're a publicly traded company, you can offer stocks to your employees. So the value of your company goes up, the value of their retirement or their investment goes up. But there's so many other things at play there and you're so far removed from your little spot, say something like Kroger, as
Mhm.
a cashier or a stocker. Maybe you do have stock, but
Hmm.
you're so far removed from the direction of the company, from having the ability to say what may or may not be a good idea, of having any meaningful impact at shareholder meetings or anything like that, that it doesn't feel like you're invested in the company. You're just hoping that it does good.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
The way that I saw it when it was offered to me uh, back in the QFC year was there would be the offer was they would watch the stock prices, they would find the average minimum of the stock price over the year. Then you get like you can have up to 5% of net taken out of your paycheck, which is then um, built up over the time until that one-time buy for all of the employees once a year, and then you get that price. So they don't have to pay you, and then at the end they give you stock at a
Uh,
good price.
oh,
And
okay.
if you work for Apple or Google, that's great. But if you work for a company that's not, just increasing rapidly and dominating the stock market,
Yeah.
it's just like you you would have been better served back in the day with a pension or a standard, some sort of standard retirement plan. But so now if the unions are still doing that. So if a company folds, you still have a retirement plan with the union. Um, but when you have stock in a company, your whole life rides on this company that, as an average employee, you have virtually no control over.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Um, Justin, obviously you grew up in the type of environment, yeah, you did. Would you say that your out and your expanded view on the world was your mindful decision to go into the military?
That was part of it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
That was some of it. So what I will say is that I know what it's like to live in a very financially or economically depressed community where it's hard for everybody. But what I'll also say is that it's still, you can still see the prejudices at play even within that community and the resources that become available in that community, and that I had opportunities, and insight and education and mentorship, available to me, probably because I was white, probably because I appeared as smarter, than most of the other kids around me. Um, that a lot of other people that didn't have the same opportunities. Um, and so that while I had very similar upbringing, and, worse than probably most, and then better than some, I can also see how privileges and prejudices still come into play even in that situation.
Mm.
Mm.
And so over time, I did meet people and have friends that were experiencing more, that did see more, and that kind of opened my eyes up to some of it. And um, unfortunately, or however you want to look at it, the military is one way out of that. However, even the military is not a ticket out for a lot of people. if you already have a juvenile criminal record, if you have medical conditions, if you have psych conditions, if you have a lot of interactions with psychiatrists or the police or CPS or anything on your record, it's hard to get in.
Mm.
And then even through all of that, and you had to have, not always, but you have to have your high school diploma. You
Really?
know, they've become the barrier to entry even for that is higher than that you would think.
I didn't even. I knew.
It's changed over the years, I believe.
Yeah, it's different and
Okay.
it's different in different times, right? So it
Okay.
depends on the needs of the military at that time, how lax the requirements are to get in. If it's wartime and we're actively recruiting, it's going to be a lot easier to get in.
Okay. That makes sense.
But in a relaxed peacetime, the requirements do become stricter.
Yeah, I thought at least the basic requirement was that you had to be at least 18. I
Yeah.
didn't know you had to actually have a high school diploma. But no, that makes sense now that you've explained that.
Yeah, just like Siddick said, they're much more or less selective depending on if they're trying to grow or shrink. So the recruiters will get directives from who their chain of command on changes and what to look for, and this is what we need and stuff like that. But even that as a opportunity springboard to get out of that environment is selective. So it's not even like you can just choose to do it, right? Because there's so many ways to screw up along the way that may or may not be even something within your power, that you can even be denied that. So, and there's a lot of people that just say go to the military and it'll open up all these opportunities, but that's not even the case for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean there is the GI Bill. There is some help with buying your first home, which I've heard has some pluses and minuses to it.
I bought my house using the VA loan or
VA loan.
VA backed loan.
Okay, nice. Yep. Very very nice.
Yep. And I got my. I should have stayed, but I got my associates using the GI Bill.
Okay, so there is that. But there's no guarantee that what you're going to learn in the military can be directly applicable to.
No, and that's another part of that is saying just join the military is like saying just go learn a skill. Like what skill? What do you mean? What do I do? So
because it
when
sounds like you can do that anywhere. Sorry to interrupt you, because it sounds like you can do that anywhere versus because when you see these commercials for Marines or Army or whatever, you get this vision that if you join the military, you'll be working in this lab or you'll become a doctor and all this cool stuff. And then if you want to do more technological stuff, you can like run the submarine or whatever. And I'm just like, can't I just go to trade school? Or I don't know.
No,
It just seems very over exaggerated.
The experience is so the commercials definitely make it more exciting than it is.
Oh, it's exciting.
80% of your time is in what's called hurry up and wait. So you're just going where you're supposed to go, dressed how you're supposed to dress, and waiting for further instructions. And but when you join, you take the ASVAB, which is sort of like it's an aptitude test.
Okay.
So like your
like
college entry exam, just to see where you are in your math and your English and all of that.
Yep. So you take the ASVAB, and it's like an SAT, and they determine your eligibility for the different jobs that are available, and based on your eligibility and then what jobs are actually available, the recruiter will try to shoehorn you into one that they want you to be in that they have to fill.
I heard of that.
But but other than that, you have like a range of jobs that you can pick from. And they always try to have you fill the hardest one or the most technologically challenging one because
Because
it's
that's what they need.
obviously it's going to be harder to fill down the line.
I've heard
Um,
of that. That's interesting. Okay.
so not everybody even has every opportunity, every option available. Not everybody can join. So it gets complicated and it gets more and more selective and restrictive the further you get into it. And then like Sidix is saying is that there's some jobs that have no civilian counterpart. Um, there there's a lot of yeah, attack helicopter pilot. Um, there's a lot of jobs in the military that the only civilian counterpart is to contract for the military.
Wow.
Is to be a DoD contractor or some sort of a militia contractor. But I mean, all that aside, just saying that it it's not always a solution. It's not always available. It's not always that helpful. I mean, there is thousands and thousands and thousands of homeless veterans or people that are in the same situation or worse than before they joined.
Circles back.
Yeah.
If you guys are talking about the military, why isn't Stidix on the show as an expert witness? Good question, Ollie
Yeah.
Men. Good question.
Yeah, we ask them that every week.
Every week.
But to kind of circle back to before all this, yeah, that was a big changing factor in my life. Even aside from all of the opportunities and things that it opens up for you, it does teach you after a lot of stubbornness and being boneheadedness, some discipline and some better ways to handle yourself and to manage your life.
Mm-hmm.
And it teaches you that you can get by on pretty much just a bed and food and water for a really long time.
I swear your Navy stories are grueling. I'm like, why the fuck did you do that?
Submariner is a tough way to go.
Yeah. I think that's the toughest out of because I've had friends and know of people that have either been in the Marines or the Army or Air Force. And I just got to say, I think the Navy is just the most grueling because how long were you in the sub for?
Long time.
Long time. Yeah, that's grueling.
Water is water.
What do you mean, Stitics?
It's always cold. But
Hi, L.
yeah.
Um,
But yeah,
oh yeah, go ahead.
it does help. It did help me a lot, and it's yeah. I have a lot more to say about the transition in and out of it in general, in terms of how it affected me and changed the way I think about some things. But yeah, we'll save that, I guess.
Hmm. I think because I just had a basic understanding of like how uh people got along that were not like myself, I guess I could say. And you definitely in our talks, you definitely gave me a broader perspective and understanding because it just seemed easy for me to fall back on. And it almost sounds like now that I think about it, and I've said this to you before, it kind of sounds like the typical conservative statement of, oh, just ask for it or get it yourself or things like that. When I would say, like, well, why didn't I don't know, they ask for or go to school or I don't know. I said something that was now sounds kind of ignorant. Um, but it makes sense the matter of time that you're not afforded for yourself when you're working day to day, paycheck to paycheck, struggling. You don't have time for just to think in general. You're just consumed with what you're struggling with, and you have to just get by as much as you can. And then when you do seek help or or what people or most Republican conservative politicians as handouts. I mean, it's not only are you in need of assistance, it's I mean, you feel almost embarrassed that you have to seek out that assistance, even though you know to your honest self that you're trying as much as you can. But society, how we have grown with the cost of living just going up and up and up, and payment and wages is staying stagnant or even lowered in some degrees, where no one is fairly paid equally. It's like, what do you do? You have so much going against you, and it's like, well, I'm trying to get by, and and you just can't.
Yep. Yeah. I mean,
Mm.
I think, yeah, and I think that a lot of it is honestly, and I've seen this with myself and my family, is people that waste money, that waste opportunity, that waste time, that waste effort on not necessarily being the most responsible or always improving themselves, but that falls into the whole the lower self confidence, the lower self esteem, the lower ambition, the lower um, um, expectations that you have for yourself,
Yeah.
because you always feel like if you work that extra day, or if you save that money, or if you didn't go out that night, that something would come up and you would be in the same situation you are anyway.
Mm,
It doesn't feel you doesn't feel like there's a long term plan to for things to get better.
Would
no.
you say you can't see that if you're putting out effort, you can't see it accumulating to anything? I mean,
Right.
is it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So if you're not coming from um, like that, intergenerational wealth, or from
Hmm.
people with a long line of history of success, it's harder to see that what you're doing can accumulate and build, because you don't have that long term prospect. You're just living week to week, month to month at the most, and
Mhm.
it you just don't see that even again, you just don't see the options or the opportunities that are there.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, and I definitely see this as more of a class issue, and then it kind of devolves into it being a race issue. But when we had that economic Great Depression way back when, and then we had a president that put forth a big New Deal plan in order to revive everyone, and that I mean, I'm using it as an umbrella term, everyone in this in America. You don't see that type of strife now. Um, and I forgot what point I was trying to make here, but I was overall just saying that, you know, that then the type of moves and policies and things that was trying to activate the economy again so you can assist those struggling farmers and everyone else, and closing down the banks so people don't lose out on more money, and everything that crept up under the big new deal when FDR put that through, that today is looked upon as socialist actions. But that if that had not occurred, then there would where would we be now as a nation, just from that push of putting forth those socialist policies?
I think is that there's a lot of misnomers, misconceptions. There's a lot of leftovers from the Red Scare, from our war on communism and socialism.
Mhm.
There's a lot of that going on, because if you ask people that were like Trump supporters, that are traditional conservatives, that are um, impoverished people that would vote that way, if they would support welfare, they would. If they would support free healthcare, they would, right? They're in support of these programs, but only insofar as it benefits their in group.
That's the point I was gonna. That's the point I was trying to make. Yes.
So that is, there's a lot of talk about, we call people like, Christian nationalists, but this is what the Nationalist Socialist Party was built on. Was we have all these good economic policies, but it's only helping the people that we want to help, because they feel like, because there's a lot of arguments of, I would support welfare if people didn't use it and scam it and do drugs with it and buy the wrong food. I would support universal basic income if people didn't waste it and throw parties and go on vacations.
Or buy that next iPhone.
Right. So yeah, buy iPhones and big screen TVs. So there's the people, they see these as good, economic policies and making positive impacts, but they don't want to help the people that they want to actively discriminate against.
Right.
And so they vote, and with that, because it's too difficult to legally outright actively discriminate, they would rather vote against their best interest than to vote for helping people that they don't like.
Mm-hmm.
That's just pure stubbornness.
Yeah. I'm glad we kind of had this conversation too. I know there's a lot more there. I don't know. And it helps me because I can learn what I have not experienced and have a better, I guess, empathetic ear and knowledge. If I'm ever met with like people are assholes. Yes, you're right, Ollie, man. That's a summation of this. People are assholes. But I don't have any specific question. But I always just refer to you, Justin, because you like I said, we grew up in different backgrounds, so I appreciate learning from you and anyone else from that. Is there anything additional that you wanted to touch on based on, I don't know, experience or what you personally fight for or anything like that?
No, I mean, my biggest thing now and over the years has been to make an effort to stop making conclusions or judging people or I don't really know how to say it, but to just be more open-minded about solutions to wide-scale problems instead of relying on your intuitions and your personal experience and your own ideas of what the problems and solutions are, and just listen more and talk and conversate more and be more open to ideas. And that's across the board, because it's to make these widespread changes, we need a lot of support from a lot of people. And you gotta be convincing and persuasive, but you have to have good arguments and you have to have good positions backed by good evidence. So it's really to just be a more effective communicator, a more effective listener. And that kind of will play into everything with learning about people from different backgrounds, different experiences, and just not just outright trying to shut people down before the conversation even gets started.
I agree.
Effective listening and what is it, the principle of charity, trying to keep that in mind when you're in conversations that you may find difficult.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to. I mean, well, this is like a whole separate conversation, but it's hard to convince groups of people. But it's easier to convince one person and let the group watch, and maybe get a couple more from that group to buy into your argument rather than just telling the whole group at once. This is, my position, because it's a big uphill battle. But anyway, this is all an aside, and trying to encourage getting rid of preconceived notions about why somebody may or may not be wealthy or well off or poor or middle class or whatever situation they may be.
Yeah.
Doesn't work here yet, Malty.
I love that he tried. This is good. My takeaway is do what you can to help others and don't expect shit from others. It's worked well for me. Oh, I'm so glad it has aesthetics. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, aesthetics always has something. I mean,
he was
yeah,
good on the first part, but the second part kind of waned.
you had me in the beginning, right?
Yeah, in the beginning, exactly.
So it's not that you should expect other people to do things for you simply because you expect them to, but you should expect your community to help you if they can as well, if you value that community, or you want to build a community that values each other. Now you can be like isolationist and say, I have resources available, whether it be money or energy or time or physical resources, and I'm going to help others in need. But say I don't have food or running water or heat, I'm just not going to expect my neighbors to take me in. It's going to be like, no, we helped each other all this time. I expect, not because, and it is selfish, but not because I did these things for you, but because if we're going to live together and, as a social, society, we have to help each other.
Precisely. Exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I'll burn your house down when this is all over.
You bastard. You bastard.
Look, I'm all about long-term solutions to short-term problem.
I like it.
I flip-flop very quickly on being nice to people.
Hey, sometimes it takes that shit. What about you, Multi? What are your final thoughts on this? I don't know too much about your overall background as far as your financial stability with family and all that stuff, but just overall with this.
Yeah, definitely. Listening to this definitely is. I've learned so much from both of you about different different blind spots that I have, and just it kind of opens my eyes on how each of our upbringings was unique in itself. Definitely.
Oh yeah.
I grew up to a working class school teacher, so two working school teachers in a rather affluent suburb. So lower middle class, and everyone else was. Most of my neighbors or the surrounding environment was upper middle class. So it was kind of strange. We can get into that some other time, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I appreciate that, Multi. Thank you. Like I've learned a lot from you, as far as constructing things and how to build a window and all that stuff. So you said,
that's what I'm good at: building windows and putting pasta in drawers.
oh yeah. So I've definitely learned that. But it's good that we had these conversations, and I'm glad I brought this back so that Justin can really discuss what we initially wanted to when we first talked about poor people be like type of subject. So thank you, Justin, for sharing as much as you wanted to. Um, I had a bit of a comment from this because good old statics. My point is more that it's, in my opinion, about showing and convincing, not legislating or mandating. If that's what it has to be done, it's a problem. And, I mean, there is, I don't know if I'm saying this the right way. There is like said well, no, I'm not going to say that. I think there should be not necessarily a mandate, but legislation to where there are safety nets and programs to assist people that are overwhelmed with poverty and are poverty stricken and can't get by just based on the most basic, almost unlivable wages or resources and things like that. So, I mean, sure, there can be a matter of showing and demonstrating that this group or section of population or people need assistance, but there should be appropriate legislation to help supplement all that. But
Hmm.
that's a continued conversation that we can possibly have in our after show on the Discord. And I have, for the nth time, fixed the damn link. So that's the correct one, I promise. If you are not on our Discord, it's tiny.cc/IFDC. I don't know why I named it that. Figure it out on your own. You can follow Justin. What?
Discord center.
Yes. Oh, Discord Center. Fuck. Anyways, no, sorry. You can follow Justin at facebook.com/skeptech because, he has all the memes and all the cool stuff to say. And you can follow me on facebook.com/Black Female Atheist. And yay, I have a Twitter, blah, 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 at Jena and whatever. Multi, where can we follow you?
I guess I'm gonna have to get into the 21st century, or at least the 20th.
I finally did.
Yeah, I mean, I have Facebook. I mean, you can find me at the Discord, ACD. You can follow me. If you want to see me talk about things on the nonprofits, I'm a regular host. So they will be doing that as well. No Twitter right now, and no public Facebook. No.
We'll get you on Twitter. Don't worry.
Yep, that's in the to-do list next week.
You'll eventually get there. Trust me. Fuck. Anyways, next week we do have a guest, Justin.
Me?
No.
Oh.
I'm saying, Justin, we do have a guest next week.
Oh.
Yes, next week we have a guest. Frustrated atheist. I gotta get. You know what? He's in Texas, and I tried to message him the other night, so I don't know how he's doing. So our dear friend, frustrated atheist, I hope you're doing well. If you happen to catch this, I'll try to reach out to you again soon. But thoughts and prayers. Just kidding. Everyone who's on Texas, I hope you continue to stay safe. I know it's crazy out there. I hope everyone out there, is doing okay. But hopefully, if Frustrated Atheist is doing well too, and he has internet and electricity, because he found a means to create electricity all on his own, you will see him next Thursday. This time. Other than that, oh shit, I didn't create a banner. Justin's gonna be on Neil's show this weekend.
He is gonna on Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday.
Okay.
Yes, Justin's gonna be on Neil's 604 Atheist show talking about his deconversion story, or whatever story he has, because you don't have a deconversion story. I'm sorry, but Justin's gonna talk, and it's gonna be on Neil's show. So support him this Saturday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. So yay, bestie, you're gonna be there. And I know Multi, you had yours this last week, so that was awesome too.
Thank you.
We
Yep.
all should support Justin this time because it's his turn. And then we'll eventually get Stidix on this show too. Yes, he has a deconversion. Shut up. All right. So
All right, we're going. We gotta
we're
go.
going now. Okay. See you in the Discord. Bye.